Imagine a telescope with a mirror the same size as Hubble's, but designed to survey enormous areas of the sky far more efficiently. Now imagine that instead of spending most of its time staring deeply at one small target, it repeatedly maps huge regions of the cosmos, searching for patterns that could tell us what dark energy is, how dark matter is distributed, and how planets form and move through our galaxy. That is the basic idea behind NASA's Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. Roman is not being built simply as another version of Hubble or James Webb. The scientific strategy is different. Roman is designed for wide-field surveys in near-infrared light. NASA and ESA describe it as a mission intended to address major questions about dark energy, dark matter, galaxies, and exoplanets. Its unusually large field of view means it can cover much more sky in a single observation than Hubble's infrared field of view, making it especially useful for surveys that require large statistical samples. The observatory is named after Nancy Grace Roman, NASA's first chief astronomer. Roman played a major role in establishing NASA's space astronomy program and helped make the Hubble Space Telescope possible. NASA has often referred to her as the Mother of Hubble. The mission was originally known as WFIRST, the Wide Field Infrared Survey Telescope, before it was renamed in her honor in 2020. The mission has a long history. In 2010, the U.S. National Academy of Sciences Astronomy Decadal Survey identified the WFIRST concept as a top priority for the next decade. Over time, the mission's design evolved, its scientific goals were refined, and the project became the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope. It is a NASA-led mission, with contributions from international partners including the European Space Agency. Roman's primary mirror is 2.4 meters in diameter, the same basic diameter as Hubble's primary mirror. But the important difference is not simply mirror size. Roman combines that aperture with a wide-field instrument capable of observing a much larger patch of sky at once. ESA describes the wide-field instrument as a 300-megapixel camera covering visible and near-infrared wavelengths. That combination of sensitivity, field of view, and survey speed is central to Roman's scientific role. The wide-field instrument is Roman's main scientific camera. It will collect images and spectroscopic information across a broad region of the sky. The goal is not just to produce beautiful pictures. Large surveys allow scientists to measure huge populations of galaxies, stars, supernovae, and other objects. With enough objects, subtle patterns become measurable, and those patterns can reveal how the universe has changed over cosmic time. One of the most difficult questions in modern cosmology is why the expansion of the universe is accelerating. Scientists use the term dark energy for whatever is responsible for that observed acceleration, but the name is not an explanation. Roman will investigate dark energy using several complementary methods, including measurements involving galaxy clustering, weak gravitational lensing, and distant Type 1a supernovae. The objective is to test models of cosmic expansion with a large, consistent data set. Dark matter does not emit or reflect light in the ordinary way, so telescopes cannot simply photograph it. But gravity reveals its presence. Roman will use weak gravitational lensing, tiny distortions in the apparent shapes of distant galaxies, to help map how matter is distributed. Because most matter is thought to be dark matter, these measurements can provide a powerful picture of the large-scale structure of the universe. Roman will also search for and study distant Type 1a supernovae. These explosions can be used as standardized distance indicators when their properties are calibrated carefully. By comparing distances with the redshifts of their host galaxies, astronomers can reconstruct how the expansion of the universe changed over time. Roman's wide survey capability will allow researchers to build a large sample rather than relying on only a small number of objects. Roman will also search for planets beyond our solar system. One important technique will be gravitational microlensing. When a foreground star passes in front of a more distant background star, its gravity can magnify the background light. If a planet orbits the foreground star, the planet can create a short additional signal. This technique is especially useful for finding planets at distances from their stars that can be difficult to probe with transit surveys. Roman carries a coronagraph instrument designed primarily as a technology demonstration. A coronagraph suppresses the overwhelming light of a star, so that much fainter objects near it can potentially be observed. Roman's Coronagraph is intended to demonstrate high-contrast imaging and spectroscopy of nearby exoplanets. It is an important step toward future observatories that could directly study smaller, potentially habitable worlds. It is tempting to frame Roman and the James Webb Space Telescope as competing observatories, but that misses the point. Webb is exceptionally powerful for detailed observations of individual targets. Roman is designed to survey much larger areas of the sky efficiently. One mission can find or characterize populations and identify interesting targets. Another can then examine selected objects in much greater detail. Their capabilities are complementary rather than interchangeable. Roman will also complement ESA's Euclid mission. Both missions investigate the dark universe, but their survey strategies and instruments differ. ESA describes Euclid as having a larger single-pointing field of view, while Roman has a larger 2.4-meter telescope and stronger infrared sensitivity over a somewhat smaller survey area. Together, the missions can provide complementary measurements of cosmic structure and the history of expansion. A telescope that surveys the sky at this scale creates an enormous data challenge. ESA says Roman is expected to downlink data at rates as high as 500 megabits per second and could produce up to 20 petabytes of data during its 5-year primary mission. That means the mission is not only an astronomy project. It is also a major exercise in spacecraft communications, data processing, storage, and scientific analysis. After launch, Roman is planned to operate near the second Sun-Earth Lagrange point, known as L2. This ESA region in space where the gravitational geometry allows spacecraft to maintain a useful position relative to Earth and the Sun with relatively efficient station keeping. Operating near L2 is also useful for infrared astronomy because it supports a stable observing environment away from many sources of interference near Earth. Although Roman is a NASA-led mission, international cooperation is part of its story. ESA contributes components including detectors for the Coronagraph, star trackers, batteries, and ground station support for communications. ESA's new Norcia ground station in Australia is being prepared to support Roman's science data downlink. This cooperation illustrates how modern space astronomy increasingly depends on networks of agencies, scientists, engineers, and ground systems rather than a single organization working alone. The most exciting possibility is not one single spectacular image. Roman's real strength may be statistical. By observing enormous numbers of galaxies, stars, supernovae, and planetary systems, it can look for patterns that are almost impossible to detect in small samples. Those patterns could strengthen existing models or reveal disagreements that force scientists to rethink them. In science, that second possibility can be just as important as the first. There is an important distinction between what Roman is designed to investigate and what it will actually discover. It would be misleading to say that Roman will solve dark energy, prove the existence of alien life, or automatically find an Earth twin. The mission is designed to gather evidence that can test competing scientific ideas. The results will depend on what nature actually reveals. As of the current ESA fact sheet, Roman's planned launch date is August 30th, 2026, aboard a SpaceX Falcon Heavy from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Launch schedules can change, so the date should always be checked against the latest NASA mission update before publication. The mission is designed for a nominal 5-year science lifetime, with the possibility of an extension if the spacecraft and funding allow. The Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope is not simply another powerful camera in space. It is a survey machine designed to turn the sky into a giant scientific data set. It will look for the fingerprints of dark energy in the expansion of the universe, map the distribution of matter through gravitational lensing, search for distant supernovae, and discover planets through microlensing. Its coronagraph will also test technologies that could shape future searches for planets beyond our solar system. And perhaps that is the most interesting thing about Roman. We often imagine astronomy as a search for one extraordinary object, one new planet, one distant galaxy, one spectacular image. Roman takes a different approach. It asks what happens when we measure an enormous portion of the universe carefully enough that patterns begin to emerge. Somewhere inside those patterns may be answers to questions we have not yet learned how to ask. And when Roman begins its survey of the cosmos, the most important discovery may be the one nobody has predicted yet.